"Stop acting rich." That's what he said, while wearing a custom charcoal suit I paid for, while sipping bourbon I stocked, in a house I mortgaged, under a roof I scrubbed with my bare hands when he couldn't even afford a plunger. He said it with that smirk, the same one he wore when I used to drive him to class in my old Ford Focus with the broken passenger window, back when he had 3 ties to his name, and I ironed all of them. My name is Yolanda. I'm 49 years old, and this is the story of how I learned that silence can be louder than revenge. Back in Birmingham, Alabama, things don't move fast. That's a blessing and a curse. Folks know your business before you do, but they also know your character. And I had character. A whole lot of it. I worked nights as a trauma nurse at UAB, 12-hour shifts, split-second decisions, blood on my scrubs more nights than not. I can still feel the dried sweat on my temples during those 3 a.m. runs between rooms, the smell of alcohol wipes stained into my fingerprints. The beeping monitors became my lullabies, and still, somehow, I'd make it home in time to pack him lunch, ham and mustard on rye, no mayo, extra chips. He'd grab the bag without looking, mumble a quick thanks, and head out. "Gotta hustle," he'd say, as if he was the only one grinding. His name was Malcolm, smart, charming, and broke. But I loved him through the broke. Loved him when his bank balance couldn't even buy a biscuit from Hardee's. When he got accepted into law school, that overpriced private one out in Atlanta, I took extra shifts. I pawned my grandmother's sapphire necklace to cover his deposit. That necklace had been passed down 3 generations. I told myself it was an investment, that once he made it, we'd be a power couple. He'd be the sharp one in the courtroom, and I'd run a clinic one day. We'd clink glasses in some high-rise apartment and laugh about the days we shared canned soup and dreams. But law school is where he started changing. First, it was the voice. He started talking different. Less Alabama, more Atlanta. A slight roll in his R's, like he'd practiced wealth in the mirror. Then it was the clothes. Suddenly, my Target blazers were too loud for firm events, and he needed tailored lines to make an impression. He said it like I should have known better. I bought his first suit from Men's Warehouse, the navy one with thin lapels, then a gray one, then a black one. I learned fabric types and measurements like I was prepping for a fashion exam. 3 weddings, 4 internships, and a bar exam later, he had a wardrobe that could walk itself. And me? I had plantar fasciitis and permanent eye bags, but I clapped the loudest when he passed that bar. In a cramped auditorium where the AC was broken and my dress stuck to my back. I smiled so wide my cheeks hurt. I paid the fees, too, slipped that debit card across the counter, without hesitation. When he got that junior associate role at Hamilton and Price, one of those old-school firms that still sent paper memos and hosted bourbon tastings, he didn't thank me. Not really. Just said, "You made it easier." Not we. Not thank you. Just easier. As if greatness was inevitable for him. I just shaved off the speed bumps. That fall, I noticed he stopped introducing me by name, started saying things like, "My lady's in healthcare," or "She's in nursing," but never Yolanda. Never "the woman who kept me alive on peanut butter sandwiches and prayer." I became an accessory, a piece that came with the suit he wore. Then came that night, the night of the firm's quarterly dinner. I wore my emerald green wrap dress, the one that hugged me right, but still made me feel professional. I spent an hour curling my hair, redoing my makeup twice because my hands were shaking. He looked me up and down and said, "You sure about that color?" Like emerald was a crime. Didn't wait for my answer, just straightened his tie and left the room. We arrived at the country club 10 minutes early. He walked 3 steps ahead, shook hands, slapped backs, poured charm like syrup on waffles. The chandeliers glowed warm yellow, catching the gold in his cufflinks that I'd bought from Macy's. People laughed loud and fake, their perfume mixing with overpriced steaks sizzling on trays. Then he introduced me as the backbone at home, like I was drywall, structural, silent. I smiled so hard my jaw ached. My cheeks trembled. I sipped my water like it was wine because I wanted something to numb the sting. That was 3 months ago. Now he stood in our kitchen, sipping 12-year-old bourbon, leaning against my granite countertop, the one I picked out at Lowe's after saving 6 months of night shift bonuses, telling me, "Stop acting rich." The audacity rolled off him like steam from the dishwasher. I didn't say a word, just nodded, like I understood something I didn't need to explain. I rinsed the wine glass I had just finished, dried it with the towel I embroidered myself to relax between shifts, and walked upstairs. My feet were silent, but my heart, it was loud, loud in the way thunder hides behind clouds. There's a red folder in my closet, tucked between 2 boxes of old tax returns and birthday cards from my sister. That folder has every major receipt I ever kept: the $3,700 tuition deposit from his first semester, the invoice for his bar prep course, the Amex statement from when his car broke down in Decatur, the Macy's receipt from his first cufflinks, and the Post-it he wrote me back in '09. Thank you for believing in me when I didn't believe in myself. I keep that note between the receipts. That's how I remember it was real. Once. Before suits and ego built a wall between us. The next morning, I woke up before him, fried 2 eggs, toasted his bagel, set out the honey he liked, the kind imported from somewhere I can't pronounce. My hands moved like muscle memory, like a woman trained to nurture someone who forgot she existed. Then I went into the guest bedroom and shut the door, opened my laptop, typed in, "How to start an LLC in Alabama." The cursor blinked like a heartbeat, like a countdown. By lunch, I had a name: EYR Legacy Holdings, ER Earned, yours, reclaimed. The words tasted like something sharp and new on my tongue. Not bitterness. Not yet. More like awareness. He came home that evening with a tie draped around his neck and a Bluetooth earpiece still buzzing. He paced while talking. Big gestures, big promises, deals he hadn't earned, opportunities he assumed were waiting. Didn't ask how my day was, didn't notice I hadn't spoken more than 10 words. "Need to order more Glenfiddich," he muttered. "Can you add that to the grocery run?" I nodded and thought to myself, add that to the invoice. My silence tasted sweet. Before bed, I sat at the vanity, the same white one Mama gave me when I turned 20. The bulb on the left side flickers sometimes. I caught my reflection in the mirror. The woman staring back looked tired, sure. But there was something else in her eyes. Focus. Years of let it go. He's just stressed. Tomorrow will be better. Tomorrow rarely listened. Malcolm's footsteps echoed down the hallway. Confident. A man certain the world owed him softness. He passed the guest room door without noticing the glow from my laptop. Articles about investment strategies, property liens, silent partnerships. He would have seen a woman preparing. He climbed into bed without a word. Didn't ask where I was. I stood in the doorway watching him. The rise and fall of his chest. The comfort he slept in. Comfort I built. He had no idea the foundation he stood on was shifting. The next day, I met with my friend Charlene, the one who knows real estate like preachers know scripture. She hugged me and whispered, "I've been waiting for you to wake up." We sat with coffee while she showed me listings, homes with potential hidden under chaos, broken places ready for someone who understood repair. I signed papers with hands that didn't shake. When I got back in the car, I didn't feel guilt, just breath, full breath, the kind you take when you finally step outside a cage you built trying to love somebody. By Thursday, I ordered a planner thick enough to build a staircase, color-coded tabs, investment timelines, mortgage research. I even scheduled self-care, something Malcolm called unnecessary. A pedicure circled in red, board meeting. I smiled at the joke, because I wasn't the joke anymore. Friday night, he said he was working late. Partners, negotiations, big night. But his location said Mountain Brook Steakhouse, candlelight, wine glasses, no partners, Some truths don't need evidence. I placed my phone screen down, opened my laptop, signed my name. Not Mrs. Malcolm Price, not a silent backbone. Yolanda, full spine, full name, full ownership. He came home past midnight, smelling like wine and someone else's lipstick. Kicked off his loafers. Didn't notice the second set of keys on the counter. New keys. Keys to my first property. He didn't know questions existed. He didn't know I'd finally asked one. As I watched him stumble down the hallway, pride intact, tie crooked, it hit me. He really thought he built this life. All he did was move in. And now, I was moving him out, not from the house, from the throne he never earned. The next morning, he left early, said he had a breakfast briefing downtown. He kissed me on the cheek like always, a quick peck that felt more like checking a box than showing affection. His tie was slightly crooked. The knot sat just a little too low, like it had lost confidence on the way up. I used to straighten it, smooth the fabric, make sure he walked out into the world polished and sure. Today, I let it sit wrong. That was the first step. Stop fixing a man who refuses to acknowledge he's broken. I waited until I heard the garage door roll up, then down. Waited until the sound of his tires faded out of the driveway, swallowed by morning traffic. The silence he left behind was almost sweet, like quiet wasn't emptiness, but space. I poured myself a fresh cup of coffee, hazelnut creamer, 2 sugars, and sat at the kitchen island. Cool stone under my palms, steam rising from the mug like a small invitation to breathe. Then I opened the red folder, not to look at his debts, to look at my power. Every sacrifice documented, every receipt a piece of leverage, every post-it note a reminder. I didn't just support him, I built him. Brick by brick, loan by loan, night shift by night shift. I sipped. And for the first time, the bitterness wasn't from the coffee. I spent the next 2 weeks moving like silence had a strategy. My phone became a chessboard. Outgoing calls were moves, always 3 ahead. I called my cousin Denise, who works at Regions Bank over in Hoover. She recognized my voice before I even said my name. "Girl, it's been a minute," she laughed. "Longer than it should have been," I said. I told her I was looking to secure a private credit line under my name only, using my employment history and retirement contributions as proof of stability. Her voice softened. It dropped to that confidential whisper women reserve for truth and survival. About damn time you did something for you. No judgment, no questions, just a door opening. Filed the paperwork before lunch. That same week, I talked to a realtor friend who deals with residential flips, mostly older houses around Ensley and Avondale. The kinds of homes with peeling paint but strong bones, sagging porches, but real potential. She mentioned a duplex coming up for auction. Foreclosure, good structure, ugly as sin. My favorite combination. "I can get you in early," she said. "Quiet interested buyers have advantages." "I'm interested," I told her. I didn't mention Malcolm. Lesson 1 of quiet revenge. Never announce moves you haven't made yet. Silence builds equity. Meanwhile, Malcolm stayed busy building his network. Fancy dinners, private members' lounge, new cologne that cost more than my weekly groceries. The bottle sat on our dresser like a snide remark. But the more he stepped into his new world, the more he tried to shrink mine. One night, he came home late, loosened his tie, tossed his briefcase on the couch like it had offended him. "You wouldn't fit in with the wives at the firm," he said casually. "They're polished." He didn't look up when he said it. Just scrolled his phone, thumb flicking like my feelings were spam he refused to open. I swallowed my response, even though what I wanted to say was, "I polished you, with sweat, with sacrifice, with loans in my name." Instead, I asked evenly, "How was your day?" He smirked. "You wouldn't understand." The arrogance hit me like heat from an open oven. The entitlement like a splinter under my nail. The ignorance of a man wearing achievements I paid for, pretending he earned them alone. That night, While he slept with his mouth open like a teenager, drooling on the memory foam pillow I financed, I opened my laptop and emailed the county clerk, requesting records, property deeds, tax liens, corporate filings, all public information, all in reach, because if Malcolm thought he was building a kingdom, he didn't realize he was constructing it on land I owned. The first major shift happened on a Saturday. His mother, God bless her conniving heart, decided to stop by unannounced. She rang the bell like she expected applause, walked in like she paid the mortgage. She scanned the living room, eyes sharp and judgmental, pausing on every candle, every pillow, every little thing I curated to make this house feel like home. Her nose crinkled like comfort offended her. "Malcolm's been saying you're spending too much," she said, voice dipped in molasses and malice. I blinked. "Spending too much on what?" She looked at his suit jacket hanging on the dining chair, rolled her eyes like it was obvious, trying to keep up appearances. "You should let Malcolm handle the money. He's the provider now." Provider? Now? As in, after I funded a decade of his life? I smiled, a calm, honey-sweet smile, the kind that makes a snake nervous. "You're right," I said softly. "I've spent enough on Malcolm." She froze mid-breath, didn't know what to do with that. I let silence answer for me. At the end of that month, the duplex auction came through. The conference room smelled like old paper and cheap coffee. My bid was clean, confident, wrapped in the protection of EYR Legacy Holdings, LLC. When the gavel came down, sold, I didn't cheer. I didn't even exhale. I just felt taller. I didn't tell Malcolm. He was too busy celebrating a small victory, landing a firm client who owned a chain of car washes. He strutted around, chest puffed, talking numbers he couldn't calculate without his assistant. "Big things coming," he said. "Yes," I thought, stirring my tea. "Just not for you." Then came the betrayal that sealed everything. We were at another firm event, a rooftop mixer overlooking downtown Birmingham. The sky was bruised purple with sunset, Edison bulbs strung above us, cocktails sweating in crystal glasses, jazz humming soft like expensive secrets. A partner's wife, kind eyes, warm tone, asked me, "So what do you do?" I opened my mouth, but Malcolm got there first. He laughed, light and dismissive. "She's just a nurse, but she loves taking care of people." "Right, babe?" "Just." The words sliced through me. Sharp, practiced, minimizing every night shift, every trauma code, every blood-soaked shoe cover, every life I helped save, reduced to just. I excused myself before my anger grew a voice. In the restroom, I stared in the mirror. The fluorescent lights were harsh. My reflection harsher, curly edges slicked back, under-eye concealer fighting a losing battle. The clearance rack dress that I once loved. I saw the woman who gave away everything and got belittled in return. I whispered to my reflection, "You're not done yet." My eyes answered back, "Not even close." When we got home, Malcolm collapsed on the bed, still half drunk on his own ego. His dress shoes dropped to the floor like he was shedding responsibility one piece at a time. I opened my laptop, the screen glow lighting up the truth. Checked the legal database again, this time looking into the firm's expansion plans, properties they'd scouted, buildings they were considering renting when he made partner. One address was circled like a promise, 1200 Magnolia Avenue 3-story brick building, modern interior, prime location in the CBD district, projected long-term lease potential, firm exclusive interest. They wanted it badly, negotiations already in progress. Lucky for me, so did I. Because when you're tired of being told to know your place, the smartest move is to own the place they want to stand in. The next morning, Malcolm poured cereal like the world bowed to him. He asked if we could switch some things around financially. "For the good of the partnership," he said. Translation, he wanted access to my accounts. I reached for my coffee, let the steam warm my face. Sipped slow. "What partnership?" I asked. He frowned. The confusion of a man unused to being questioned, like my independence was suddenly inconvenient. His lips parted like he wanted to argue, but he didn't. The smallest flicker of worry crossed his eyes. I tucked that image away like evidence. Good. Let him worry. Let him wonder. Let him feel the uncertainty I drowned in for years. By the first Thursday of the next month, the paperwork was done. EYR Legacy Holdings became the rightful owner of 1200 Magnolia Avenue through a trustee purchase. Clean, silent, untraceable back to me. The building his firm was negotiating to lease was mine, and he had no idea. The same night, he came home bragging about how close he was to making junior partner. He tapped the granite counter, swearing he might upgrade the kitchen once his bonus hit. "If this building deal goes through," he said, fingers drumming cocky, "we celebrate big." I smiled, slow, precise. "Oh, we will." For the first time in a long time. I wasn't pretending. The week they signed the lease, it rained steady for 3 days in Birmingham. Not the soft kind of rain that loosens the dirt and lets the flowers stretch. No, this was the kind that fell heavy, like the sky finally had enough of holding back. It beat against the windows and filled the gutters and made everything smell like earth and impatience. Malcolm came home drenched in excitement. Umbrella crooked, shoes muddy, grinning like he held the city in his hands. Water dripped from the cuffs of his blazer onto the hardwood floor. He didn't even notice the mess. He hung that soaked blazer on the coat rack I refinished back in 2014, the one I spent 3 weekends sanding and staining because we couldn't afford new furniture back then. He didn't remember that part. He shouted into the kitchen, "We locked it in! Magnolia Ave, it's ours!" His voice bounced off the high ceilings like a celebration nobody invited me to. I stirred the gumbo slowly. Low flame, thick roux, quiet pride, the smell of onions and peppers and heat, my kind of victory. "That's great, baby," I said, wiping the rim of the pot with a towel. He kissed me on the forehead like a politician kissing a baby. Didn't notice my smile didn't reach my eyes. He didn't know I was the one who signed the lease papers. He didn't know the signature on the deed was mine, just under my legal trust. He didn't know the landlord he'd be paying for the next 10 years. Slept 4 feet from him every night. And I had no intention of telling him, not yet. Some truths taste better when served cold. The next morning I drove across town, not to the hospital this time, but to 1200 Magnolia Ave. The clouds were breaking open, leaving the air thick and silver. The building looked even better in the sunlight than in the diagrams I'd studied. 3 stories of red brick, cleaned and sealed fresh, black-framed windows that reflected the street like mirrors. A sleek little cafe was opening up in the corner suite. Exposed wood, Edison bulbs, succulents in gold pots. The kind of place people go when they have ambition. The kind of place people go when they want to be seen doing something. I stepped into the front lobby. The floors gleamed, smelled faintly of lemon oil and new beginnings. The wall-mounted touchscreen directory glowed blue and empty. My name would never appear there. Behind every powerful man is a woman who invested early and kept the receipt. I wasn't here to pose. I was here to collect. By week's end, Malcolm's firm hosted a ribbon-cutting ceremony for their new flagship location. He spent 3 days preparing his speech, rehearsing in the mirror, practicing his earnest but humble smile. He kept tightening his tie, adjusting his cufflinks. Both gestures he copied from men he desperately wanted to impress. He said, "I just want to honor the people who made this possible." I nodded. "You should." Because if he really honored the people who made it possible, his whole speech would just be him saying my name over and over. That evening, the building glowed like it knew it was the center of attention. Photographers snapped pictures. Little hors d'oeuvres sat on silver trays, mini crab cakes with tiny lemon swirls, real crystal flutes for champagne, the kind that clink like money. Malcolm stood at the center of everything, surrounded by colleagues who clapped too hard and wives who smiled too tight, their diamonds winking under the overhead lights. He stood in front of a big banner that read, "Hamilton and Price, Building the Future of Law." When it was his turn to speak, he stepped to the mic. He tapped it once, looked around like the city was his stage. "This building is a symbol of hard work, of persistence, of sacrifice." He looked directly at me. "This is what happens when you don't let anyone hold you back." I smiled. Even from the truth, I wondered, because the only person who ever held Malcolm back was Malcolm. After the crowd thinned out, I stepped into the leasing office quietly. The carpet was new, soft under my heels. Charlene had left the key with me. I told her I'd be by to sign some final adjustments to the LLC lease terms. She didn't question it. She knew the game. I closed the door behind me, flipped on the desk lamp, and sat down in the leather chair Malcolm's firm thought belonged to management. It did, just not the kind they expected. Inside the desk drawer was a manila folder labeled Tenant Adjustments. I opened it, took out my pen, the black gel one that writes like silk, and added one simple line to the file. Rent increase scheduled annually at 8% per clause 3B. A clause Malcolm had never read, because Malcolm never read anything that didn't mention him by name. That night, we lay in bed, backs turned. The fan hummed overhead, pushing the remnants of rain through the open window. I could feel the warmth of his body, but none of the intimacy. I felt his breath slow into sleep, steady, unbothered, unaware. I pulled out my phone and opened my notes app, typed, "Silent leverage is better than loud loyalty." The words glowed white against the black screen, beautiful, sharp, true. The next morning, he was in a rush, shoes half-tied, ego fully polished. "Partner breakfast," he said, shoving one arm into his jacket. I kissed his cheek, not because I meant it, because I needed to feel the moment I stopped meaning it. As soon as the door shut, I opened my laptop, entered my passcode like I was unlocking a vault, logged into the EYR Holdings portal, scanned the rental payments, a beautiful new income stream, clicked Schedule Deposit, rerouted the next payment into a separate savings account titled Post Malcolm Just a Label, Just a Plan, Just a Quiet Exit Strategy. 2 weeks later, we sat at dinner with friends. Restaurant lighting dim and golden, wine bottles lined up on reclaimed wood shelves, conversation loud and lazy. One of Malcolm's friends, a loudmouth named Derek, leaned in over his steak and asked, "So Malcolm, how'd you secure the Magnolia lease? That's prime real estate, man." Malcolm leaned back, arms stretched wide like he invented success. "Right place, right time," he bragged. "You know how it is." Everyone laughed. Except me. I sipped my wine and thought, no, I don't know how it is, because being in the right place at the right time only matters when you know who paid for the chair you're sitting in. That weekend, I took a solo trip to Atlanta, told Malcolm I was attending a nursing conference. He barely blinked, barely cared. I drove with music loud and windows cracked, let the wind whip through my hair like an overdue freedom. I stayed in a boutique hotel in Midtown, white linen, soft jazz in the lobby, drank lavender tea on the balcony, let my shoulders drop, let my mind quiet. No beeping monitors, no partners in training with cheap power complexes, no in-laws measuring me with their eyes. Just me, breathing, present. It was the first time in years I felt still. I realized I didn't owe anyone a damn explanation anymore. Not for resting, not for leaving, not for living. When I got back, I found a Macy's box on the dining table. Inside was a dress, expensive, silk, deep red, the kind that demands attention. A card taped on top read, "Wear this Friday, black tie gala, important. No, I missed you. No, how was the conference? No, are you okay? Just orders, like I was hired staff." I closed the box lid slow. Silk whispered as it settled. I left the dress right where it was. Friday night came. Malcolm stepped out of the bedroom in one of his favorite suits, the charcoal pinstripe I bought back when we were counting coins for ramen. He looked me up and down when I walked out in a simple black wrap dress. Comfortable, elegant, mine. "You didn't wear the red one?" I shrugged lightly. It didn't fit my spirit. He raised an eyebrow. "Since when do you talk like that?" My smile was soft, but it held steel. Since I started listening to myself. At the gala, I watched Malcolm work the room like he was running for president of his own imagination. He laughed too loud, touched too many elbows, tasted too many wines he couldn't pronounce. He thrived off validation, the way some people need air. At one point, he leaned in close, breath warm with ambition. "Next year," he whispered, "they're going to put my name on the partner plaque." I leaned in too, close enough he felt the truth before he heard it. "They should check who owns the walls first." He jerked back slightly, eyes narrowing. "What's that supposed to mean?" But before I could answer, the crowd swallowed him again, hands shaking his, voices flattering him, and I let him go, because soon he'd understand. The following Monday, Malcolm's mood changed, not all at once, not loud or dramatic, but sharp, like a belt pulled one loop too tight, like a man realizing his crown was borrowed and overdue. He came home fidgeting with his tie, tugging at the knot like it was choking the lies he'd been swallowing. He muttered under his breath, phrases like unexpected lease terms and legal language that didn't match the draft. His shoes clicked across the kitchen tile, but the usual swagger wasn't there. He looked smaller, pressured, human. Meanwhile, I stayed quiet, stirred butter into the grits just like he liked. Thick, smooth, no lumps. Southern comfort in a bowl, the kind of care that once made him feel like a king. He sat down at the kitchen counter, scrolling through emails, thumb jerking like each notification carried a new disappointment. Then he said it. "Babe, did you see anything weird in the Magnolia lease packet?" I lifted one eyebrow. Just one. Controlled. Curious, but not too helpful. "No, why?" He shook his head like he regretted speaking. "Nothing. Just some rate increases in the fine print. Didn't catch them before we signed." He huffed a humorless laugh. "These landlords, man, ruthless." I nodded slowly. That word again, ruthless. He thought he was complaining, but he was complimenting me. The next week, his stress followed him home like a stray dog. Uninvited and loud. He paced more, snapped quicker, left dishes in the sink like chores were beneath him. He even started talking in his sleep, mumbling legal clauses and numbers and anxieties he refused to show me when he was awake. One night, half tangled in sheets he didn't pay for, he mumbled, "Who signed that addendum? Can't be right." I turned my back to him, faced the window. Moonlight hit the mirror, and in the reflection I saw myself, eyes open, mind awake, finally aware of my own power. He was drowning in confusion. I was floating in clarity. Then came the quarterly partner meeting. He dressed to impress. Charcoal suit. Again. The same one he wore the day he told me to stop acting rich. Funny how clothes can't cover insecurity. The fabric wrinkled around the shoulders, tension pressing into the seams. He grabbed his keys and left without a goodbye. Partners didn't need affection, just applause. He came home late that night. Real late. He walked in quiet, like shame. Didn't take off his shoes, didn't speak. Cabinet doors opened and slammed, like he was searching for something he'd never find in a kitchen. I leaned against the doorway, arms crossed. He finally exhaled. "You ever feel like people only respect you when they think you're doing better than them?" His voice cracked just a little. A man terrified to be average. I didn't answer, because some questions answer themselves. A few days later, I got the email from the leasing office. Subject line, Notice of Lease Renegotiation Inquiry. Hamilton and Price. The message was short. Your tenant is requesting a temporary rate freeze due to unforeseen financial constraints. I smiled. No panic, no hesitation, just strategy. I responded, as per Clause 3B, annual increases are contractually binding. Tenant agreed to all terms upon signing. They say revenge is sweet. No, revenge is clean, organized, professionally formatted. That Friday, I stopped by the Magnolia Building, parked in the back, away from the polished front entrance. Took the stairs, the ones tenants use when elevators break or budgets fail. On the second floor, Hamilton and Price was trying too hard. New sign, new furniture, old ego. Their receptionist sat behind a glass desk reading a paperback, oblivious. I nodded politely and kept walking. Then I stepped into the glass-walled conference room. Malcolm stood at the head of the table, mid-sentence, gesturing at projections on a screen. Talking big, zoning laws, district codes, deadlines only he understood. He froze when he saw me. "Yo, Yolanda?" He sounded unsure, confused, exposed. I didn't speak. I reached into my tote bag and pulled out a folder, set it on the glossy table surface in front of him. A small sound, paper meeting wood, but the weight of it shook the whole room. Inside, a copy of the lease, signed, stamped, notarized, under Ear Legacy Holdings. His eyes scanned the document, slow at first, then frantic. His jaw twitched. The room held its breath. He looked up at me, really looked, like a man seeing a ghost wearing skin he used to underestimate. "You're the owner?" I finally spoke. "No, I'm the investor." A step closer. "The architect." Another step. "The founder." A pause. "The landlord." His face shifted. Anger wrestling embarrassment. "Why?" he whispered. I leaned in so only he could hear. "Because when you told me to stop acting rich..." I held his gaze steady. I decided to act powerful instead. Silence spilled across the room. Even the HVAC seemed to stop humming. The junior associates avoided eye contact, pretending to read invisible notes. I stood up. "Don't worry, the lease holds." I slid the folder a little closer to him. "But next time you speak on sacrifice, make sure you mention mine." Then I walked out. He didn't follow. He couldn't. A man who builds his life on someone else's back has a hard time walking once the support steps away. That night, he didn't come home. A text showed up late. "Working overnight. Don't wait up." I didn't reply. Silence is a boundary, too. The next morning, I made myself a real breakfast. Bacon crisp and loud. Cheese grits with butter pooling on top. Scrambled eggs with spinach and feta. Bright, fluffy, seasoned like I deserved good things. I ate in the kind of quiet that tasted like peace, like something new, ownership. Sunday afternoon, he finally came home, holding flowers, lilies, white, large-petaled, dramatic, the kind I'm allergic to. He didn't even know. He shifted his weight. "I think we've been off track," he offered, voice shaky. I sipped my iced tea. "I'm not a train, Malcolm. I don't need tracks." I stood, looked him square in his unraveling ego. "I built my own road." He blinked. Confusion, fear. A man suddenly aware that the ground beneath him wasn't his. "You really went behind my back," he said, hurt dripping from every word. "No," I said calmly. "I went in the direction you refused to look." He took a step closer. False courage and fresh cologne. "So this is it? After all I've done for you?" I laughed. Quiet, low, dangerous. "Malcolm," I said, "you did nothing for me that I didn't do tenfold for you." My eyes didn't flinch. "You just forgot who signed the checks." His lips parted. Maybe to argue, maybe to apologize. But I was already done listening. That night, I changed the locks, filed the separation paperwork, updated my LLC mailing address. Then I sat on the porch with a glass of wine while cicadas hummed like gospel. Warm night air, porch light glowing soft, a single moth fluttering near the bulb like it was attracted to new beginnings. Sometimes revenge ain't loud. It's legal, notarized, and tax-deductible. The following Thanksgiving, the house smelled like sage, sweet potatoes, and quiet. The kind of quiet that isn't empty. The kind you earn. I had the oven going since 7 a.m. The good kind of cooking, where the cornbread dressing holds its shape, where butter melts into every crevice, where the turkey gets basted every 30 minutes like prayer. Steam fogged the kitchen windows. The radio hummed old soul songs, soft enough to feel like memory. I moved slow, unhurried. No rush to please anyone, no performance. Just me, and food seasoned the way I like it. I wore my favorite apron, the one with the stitched-in pearls along the neckline. Malcolm's mother once called it, "too fancy for the kitchen." She said real homemakers wore cotton, not glamour. I wore it proudly. Because this year, I wasn't cooking for anyone but me. The dining table was set for one placemat, one wine glass, one linen napkin folded like Sunday morning peace, and at the center of the plate, a fresh envelope. Inside, the first rent payment from Hamilton and Price, direct deposit into my holding account, never late, never short, never once questioning the signature on the deed. Financial respect, the only kind they ever really understood. I poured a glass of Merlot, sliced into the honey-glazed ham, and took my time. No small talk, no performative grace, no condescension at the head of the table. Just peace and power. Two things I'd spent years making room for. And Malcolm? He was long gone. Once I removed him from the house, and from the pedestal he built out of my sacrifice, he moved into some furnished apartment on the edge of downtown, a sterile place with metal chairs and art that doesn't mean anything. He texted once, "I just need space to find myself." But the truth? He was searching for the version of himself I built, and she wasn't there. I didn't argue, didn't chase, didn't explain. I forwarded his mail when I felt generous, marked return to sender when I felt honest. A few weeks after Thanksgiving, I ran into him outside Regions Bank. Cold air, gray sky, the kind of day where truths sit close to the surface. He wore a tailored coat and a forced smile, still polished, at least on the outside, but the shine didn't reach his eyes. His posture wasn't tall anymore. Shoulders dipped, pride dented. He nodded politely. "Yolanda." I nodded back. "Malcolm." There was a long moment, the kind where silence reveals more than words ever could. Then he tried, the last thing he had left. "You still running your little company?" Little. He still needed that lie. Needed me to be smaller so he could stay big. I smiled. Not wide, just enough for him to see the truth. "Little companies don't own law firm buildings, Malcolm." He blinked, jaw stiffened. Nostalgia tasted bitter on his tongue. I saw it hit him, all over again. He thought power was loud, dressed in suits, handed out in conference rooms. I knew better. Power is quiet, filed in triplicate, stamped by a notary, deposited on the first of the month. Later that evening, I opened my laptop and clicked into my spreadsheet. A soft blue glow lit the room. EER Legacy Holdings had acquired a second property, a triplex in East Lake, renovation complete, tenants lined up and grateful. One of them? A traveling nurse just like I used to be. She told me she appreciated the quiet neighborhood and the fair rent. I told her, good caregivers deserve good homes. Full circle. I sipped my tea, cinnamon, honey, and a little vanilla, and clicked over to my vision board. There it was, framed in gold, earned, yours, reclaimed. Every word is a milestone. Every letter is a promise I kept to myself. Sometimes, late at night, I think back to the girl I used to be, the one who skipped sleep to type his law school essays, the one who ironed suits she couldn't afford to wear herself, the one who smiled small at tables where her name wasn't spoken, the one who bought dreams for 2 people and got thanked for none of it. She deserved better, so I became the woman who would give her better, Not by shouting, not by begging, not by proving worth to someone who benefited from forgetting it. I won by remembering silence is not weakness, it's a strategy. And wealth? It's not always loud either. Sometimes it shows up in deeds with your name on them. Sometimes it signs the check while they're still rehearsing their speech. Sometimes it sits alone at the head of the table, with sweet potatoes that don't need anybody's approval. I looked around my home, mine, and felt wonder settle into my bones. The walls didn't echo anymore. They breathed with me. The lights didn't flicker. They glowed steady. The air didn't feel heavy. It felt earned. I raised my glass and toasted the woman I fought to become. A woman who doesn't need applause to know she won. A woman who stopped fixing broken men and started building whole futures. A woman who turned quiet into capital. A woman who owns the building people use to underestimate her. Then I took another bite of dressing, perfectly seasoned, and smiled. Because peace has a flavor. And mine tastes like freedom. If you liked this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments.